At a leadership summit, my stepmother laughed loudly. "She's the heart of our team, just don't let her make the decisions." I smiled, took notes, and spent 18 years rewiring the political and corporate alliances that kept her powerful. When I made my final move, she lost her seat on every board, her charitable foundations collapsed, her portrait was removed from hallways, and her great-grandchildren grew up hearing her name whispered in shame, never spoken aloud in respectable circles again. It was 2007, early spring in Savannah, Georgia. The trees were just turning green again, and I had borrowed a blazer from a friend because I couldn't afford one that didn't look wrinkled. I was 26. I was still trying to earn respect in a world that didn't hand it out easily, especially not to people like me who didn't come from the right schools or carry the right last name. I worked for my father's nonprofit foundation. I had started right after college doing outreach and writing grant proposals. Nothing glamorous, but it mattered. I knew it mattered. People wrote me letters thanking me. Programs I helped design kept lights on, kept kids in school, helped sick people get prescriptions. But none of that got applause at leadership summits. Diane, my stepmother, was the one people noticed. She had married my father when I was 19. She was polished, charming, the kind of woman who had perfect hair at 6 a.m. and never looked out of place in a boardroom. She knew exactly when to laugh, when to frown thoughtfully, when to humbly take credit for other people's work. I saw it early. My dad didn't. Anyway, we were at this summit. A big one. There were cameras, press, all the big city officials and donors. Diane was on a panel about women in civic leadership. She had her legs crossed neatly, her voice smooth like always. I was seated at a table in the back with the junior staffers. I wasn't supposed to be important that day. Then she looked in my direction and smiled. And she said it. Into a microphone. "She's the heart of our team," she said with a soft laugh. "Just don't let her make the decisions." Some people chuckled. Some looked uncomfortable. Most didn't think twice about it. But I remember the way her voice sounded. I remember how she turned her face just slightly, giving the camera her better side. I remember the heat crawling up my neck while everyone else at my table pretended not to notice. That was the moment I stopped trusting her. Before that, I used to make excuses for her. I told myself she didn't mean harm, that maybe she was just under pressure, that maybe she didn't realize how dismissive she could be. That stopped that day. And I didn't cry. I didn't lash out. I didn't talk to my dad or confront her. I smiled. I took notes. I stayed quiet. Then I went back to my hotel room, opened my laptop, and created a folder. I named it Long Game. She had influence. Real influence. Not just because she was married to my father, but because she had built a web over decades. She was on 5 boards. She had allies in local government. She got people jobs, landed them contracts, helped their kids get internships. They owed her. They feared her. If you crossed her, you didn't just lose your job, you got erased. So I didn't cross her. Not directly. I spent the next 5 years making myself useful, but never threatening. I learned how funding decisions were made. I saw how she leaned on friendships to guide media coverage. I figured out which board members actually did the work and which ones were just there for the photo ops. She liked to keep me close too. Said I was loyal. She'd call me her right hand when it was convenient. But behind closed doors, she'd correct people when they gave me credit. She'd remind donors that I was still learning, that I meant well. She poisoned people slowly so they never noticed they were drinking it. But while she was doing that, I was mapping her entire world. In 2013, I took a lower-profile role at a regional nonprofit. Most people thought I was moving down. Diane even told a friend I was burning out. I wasn't. I was building. That job let me connect with mid-level policy advisors, small city mayors, the overlooked people Diane ignored. I helped them win small battles. I remembered their birthdays. I introduced them to each other. I made sure they knew that I showed up, even when no one was watching. Diane's world ran on visibility. Mine was growing underground. I kept at it for years. By 2017, I was the one who got the call when a new housing initiative needed leadership. I was the one young staffer sought out for mentorship. Diane still showed up in magazines, but people started whispering, "You should really talk to me if you want things to actually happen." She didn't see it. Not yet. She still called me kiddo in meetings. Diane tried to get appointed to a statewide philanthropic council that year. It was supposed to be her big step into legacy politics. She didn't even know I was one of the voting members. She lost the vote. Unanimously. She blamed politics. Bad timing. She said the council wasn't ready for a woman with vision. I let her believe that. A month later, a journalist started asking questions about missing grant money tied to a food access initiative Diane had championed back in 2015. The numbers didn't add up. Neither did the subcontractors. That journalist never talked to me, but I had quietly passed those files along through someone I trusted. That was the start. More cracks followed: reports of inflated staff salaries in her pet projects, discrepancies in donor reports, whistleblowers suddenly stepping forward. Nothing dramatic, just steady, undeniable erosion. By the time she noticed, her allies were already gone. Her biggest donors pulled out. Her name was taken off every public document. The city removed her from the Civic Legacy mural downtown. Even the university she gave millions to rebranded their women's leadership program under a new name. And me? I never raised my voice. I never publicly accused her. But I made sure every door that used to open for her was locked now. Quietly. Permanently. Her grandkids will grow up seeing her name only in old clippings, usually attached to words like misconduct, mismanagement, and ethics violations. I'm not stopping here. Because this was never just about payback. It was about showing what happens when someone underestimates the wrong person. She taught me something that day in Savannah. She taught me exactly what kind of person I didn't want to become. And exactly how to take someone like her apart piece by piece, with a smile and a plan that never ends. I thought I had finished it. That her fall would be the end of it. But here's the thing nobody warns you about: revenge. When you take out someone like Diane, the vacuum pulls in new players. And sometimes the ones who show up are worse. Right after her foundation crumbled, a man named Burke Delaney stepped in. Burke was the kind of guy who shook your hand too hard and held eye contact like it was a challenge. He used to be a nobody, a third-tier political consultant with a podcast nobody listened to. But Diane's crash created space, and Burke had just enough charm and just enough money to start building something from the pieces. First, I didn't worry. I figured he was just another climber trying to wear her crown. But then he started talking about rebuilding trust in local leadership. He started hosting events glitzy, loud, and aggressive, all funded by shadow donors. He wasn't subtle like Diane. He didn't care about old rules. He came to take over. And here's the twist that gutted me. My father started supporting him. My father. The man who had stood quietly by Diane for years, pretending not to notice her games. The man who cried when her name was pulled off the city's honor wall. He didn't want to believe she deserved it. And Burke? Burke was offering him a way back into respectability. He's not like Diane, my dad said to me one night over coffee. He listens. I felt something sharp twist inside me. My father, who had never once said those words about me. Not after everything I had done. So now I had a new problem. And this one cut deeper. Burke wasn't just filling Diane's seat, he was trying to rewrite her history. He started defending her publicly, saying she was railroaded by politics. That she was a woman torn down by jealous peers. He never said my name. But I knew what he was doing. He was making her into a martyr. I went back into the long game folder. I started building again. But this time it wasn't about pulling someone down quietly. Burke didn't operate in shadows, he loved to fight. So I had to change the way I moved. I found out one of his biggest donors was a real estate firm with a nasty habit of gentrifying poor neighborhoods and flipping public land into luxury condos. I traced it to a deal he helped push through a zoning committee. Not illegal but ugly. People lost homes because of it. I leaked the documents. He blamed deep state activists. He got louder. So I got louder too. I went on record. I did interviews. I showed up at town halls. And for the first time in years, I let my name be seen. People knew what I had done to Diane. Now they saw I wasn't afraid to do it again. But Burke fought dirtier. He hired a PR firm to dig into my past. Suddenly, people I hadn't spoken to in years were getting weird phone calls. Old emails got posted online. He tried to paint me as cold, power-hungry. Said I used family ties to ruin a woman who raised her. And then the worst one hit. A fake op-ed, written under a pseudonym, claiming I had bullied Diane into retirement. My father didn't call me. Not once. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, reading that op-ed again and again. It wasn't just cruel. It was surgical. He knew exactly where to hit. But I wasn't 26 anymore. I didn't cry. I made a list. Burke had skeletons. The kind that didn't just tarnish your name, the kind that ruined you. I had spent too many years studying people like him not to know where to look. And if Diane thought she was destroyed, Burke was about to learn what it really meant to be erased. I started digging into Burke with more focus than I'd used on Diane. She played chess. He played street ball. Sloppy, fast, fleshy. But there was something else under his surface, something dirtier. It took 3 months before I found the crack. Burke had funneled money through one of his community revitalization nonprofits into a shell LLC, one that didn't have a website, staff, or even a real address. It was registered to a P.O. box in Peoria. The money trail led back to a political action group notorious for voter suppression tactics during the 2018 midterms. The numbers lined up too well to be coincidence. He was washing money and using it to fund his rise. Worse, some of that money was originally federal grant funding. That made it a serious crime, not just bad optics. I had everything printed, bound, indexed. I handed it off to a contact in the Inspector General's office, a woman I mentored 7 years ago during her unpaid internship. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "Understood." Burke didn't see it coming, just like Diane hadn't. But this time, something different happened. Right as Burke started sweating missing public events, scrubbing old videos from his site, Diane reached out to me. She asked to meet. In person. I hadn't seen her in over 5 years. We met at a public cafe. Neutral ground. She wore oversized sunglasses like someone used to being recognized. She didn't look broken, just faded. Her voice still had that calm, rich tone, but there was something in her eyes. Fear. No, not quite. Something closer to desperation. "I know what you're doing," she said. "I doubt it," I said. She looked down at her cup. Didn't touch it. "You think I wanted Burke to rise? You think I wanted him to rewrite my history?" I didn't say anything. She leaned closer. "He came to me 3 years ago. Said he could protect my name if I backed off. Said he'd fix what you broke." My stomach turned. "You worked with him?" "No," she said. "I let him. That was my mistake." I didn't know whether to believe her. Maybe she was lying. Maybe this was just a ploy to get me to slow down, to make a deal, to save face. But then she handed me something. A flash drive. "Emails," she said. "From him. To me. To donors. You're not the only one who takes notes." Esther daher. "Why help me now?" She paused. Then she said the one sentence I never thought I'd hear from her lips. "Because I finally understand what you were doing." The drive was gold. Burke had bigger skeletons than I imagined. Racist language in private messages. Personal attacks on local activists. Coordinated efforts to fake attendance numbers for events and overstate program impact to get bonus funding. And there at the bottom, a single email thread connecting him directly to a fraudulent voter data harvesting scam in the 2018 elections. Enough to destroy more than just his nonprofit. It could take down the state party chair. I had the ammo. I had the network. I had the perfect storm. But now I had a decision. Diane was offering to help take him down. Publicly. She said she'd go on record, confirm the emails, admit her own part in it. Said she was tired of hiding and tired of being used. But helping her meant giving her a path back. Even if only partially. Even if just to save herself. Did she deserve that? I thought about that leadership summit. I thought about the years she laughed at me behind my back, while I kept her empire running. Then I thought about Burke. And what would happen if I let him keep rising? This wasn't just about payback anymore. This was about legacy. Mine. Hers. And who got to shape what came next. I didn't trust Diane. But I trusted what she had to lose. Her name still had weight in certain places, and if she was really ready to drag Burke down, she wouldn't survive the fallout unless she told the truth. I gave her one condition. You go first, I said. She agreed. A week later, she walked into a press briefing with 3 reporters I handpicked. She sat down in front of them and told everything. The money, the threats, the promises Burke made her. She didn't play the victim. She admitted what she did to keep her reputation alive, even if it meant siding with someone she despised. She named dates, times, deals. She opened her calendar and her inbox. She burned it all down. And once the media had their fire, I gave them the gasoline. I handed off the flash drive, the bank records, the shell company listings. My team pulled up audio clips and quietly verified phone records. It took 48 hours for Burke's world to collapse. The state attorney general announced an investigation. His donors fled. Sponsors pulled out of his events. His PR team resigned. And just like Diane, he started disappearing from photos, boards, and bios. By the end of the month, Burke was off the grid. No press, no statements. His office emptied out overnight. Rumors said he'd left the state. But I wasn't done. I sent the full report to the Federal Election Commission. And I sent a copy printed, bound, and highlighted to every member of the party committee who once called him a rising star. Then I turned my attention back to my father. He hadn't spoken to me since all this blew up. Not when Diane gave her confession. Not when Burke fell. He showed up at my office on a Thursday just after lunch. Wore a suit. Didn't look me in the eye. I read the report, he said. Which one? I asked. He sat down slowly. All of them. There was silence for a while. Then he asked a question I wasn't expecting. Was it worth it? Could have said yes. I could have explained the years of humiliation, the nights I cried in my car after meetings, the way Diane controlled every piece of my career. I could have listed every good thing I built, every lie I exposed, every corrupt leader I took out. Instead I said this. No. But it was necessary. He nodded. He looked smaller than I remembered. Then he said, I should have stood up for you. I should have seen her clearly. I'm sorry. It was the first time in 20 years he had ever said those words to me. And just like that, the war was over. Diane's name is still toxic. She lives in a smaller house now. She teaches part-time at a community college under her maiden name. Her photos are gone from every wall that once praised her. Her great-grandchildren know not to say her name when guests are over. Burke. Last I heard, he was somewhere in Nevada, trying to start a podcast again. Nobody's listening. As for me, I took over Diane's old chair on the Regional Policy Council. I chair 2 ethics committees. I teach young women how to document everything, how to build networks that don't rely on noise, how to stand still while people underestimate them, and how to plan what comes after. And I tell them one thing I learned the hard way. You don't need revenge to survive. But sometimes you need it to clear the path.